I'm Mitch Kolls, co-pastor at Dripping Springs Presbyterian Church, with this lovely lady.
And I'm Nancy Marroquin, co-pastor, and started DSPC about 13 years ago.
The hearts of all people.
I had that, kind of mysterious thing of a calling to want to start a new church, and we wanted to do it in the Austin area, and had friends that were a part of Shepherd of the Hills Presbyterian. Okay. That is the farthest south at that point church, a Presbyterian church towards Dripping Springs. Okay. And so that's what we began in talking conversation with them about how could we do that. Got a couple other churches on board with us as well as sponsoring churches. And I can't tell you exactly how it went after that, except that we came out here, God started gathering a group of leaders, actually one that we're doing the memorial service for today, that people who said we're willing to try something new and help start it, and we did. So, and then about 3 years into it, not very long into it, we wanted to get a youth pastor, youth director, and found this guy. Yeah. So Mitch, in various capacities, has been with us almost from the beginning, which has been a great blessing for the church in terms of already knowing him before he became their pastor. So. Well, one thing I'll say just about the very beginning of it is God brought together some, I would call them tipping point people. People who love the Dripping Springs community, who love Jesus, and wanted to invite people to experience him in this new church. And the sense of invitation with people loving Jesus, loving his church, coming together, and not being shy about inviting people to come to a kind of a ugly double wide in the beginning. It wasn't about the place, it was about the people and the Spirit of Jesus. And so really it all begins with people who are committed to him and want to invite others into a relationship with him too. That's just where it all begins. It's not about fancy signs or buildings or saying the right thing or playing the right music. It was really about people willing to invite other people to come.
I just saw a discussion actually online about this in one of the PC U.S.A. Facebook groups. Someone was talking about wanting to start a new group, and they immediately went to, what study should I use? What curriculum should I use? And I popped on there, and my response is exactly what Nancy said. I said, you need to worry about contact work, not your content at this point. You need to invite people personally. You need to text them, email them, call them, invite them in person. Content, it needs to be decent, but people initially show up for anything for connection, not content. So, same thing.
We do, and mostly we see that, I think we've seen that across the board, more in recent times. You're talking about more recent growth in particular. I'd say recent, maybe the last 5 years or so, has been around our youth and our children's ministry. This is a community growing of families, growing with families, and they are paying attention to that. And so we happen to have a congregation that, from the very beginning, have loved kids. It's a core of who we are, and so it is. They have always been a part of it, and so we have seen a lot of invitation with families saying, where is a good place for my kids? And again, it's the relationship with their friends. They want to be with their friends, and that's been a big part of it, I think.
I'd say from the staff level, what we're trying to do is do everything in our power to add value to people's lives, because people talk about the things that are valuable to them. So what we're trying to do is, craft a Sunday morning experience that's valuable for an adult, valuable for a kid. They walk out the doors and they feel like, wow, this is something I actually want to tell somebody about because it matters to me. So no, we don't do all the inviting anymore. What we do is we try to do our best to, as an organization, add value to people's lives through the message of Christ. And then there is an expectation that if we do that, then people will tell people about the things that matter to them.
Equipping them. Trying to equip them.
Yeah.
We tell them to do it. I was going to say, it's not, I almost, I don't know that we do say to them, invite your friends, invite people, things like that. But I do think it's more about something that is caught through them. If they're excited, if they feel like a message on a Sunday morning or a Bible study. We have a lot of people invite people to evening groups, study groups first before they ever come.
Or a children's sermon.
A children's sermon.
Yeah.
If there's something that applies directly to their life, they're going to talk about it. And social media is an important part of that. I mean, we regularly will have people after a Sunday morning on Facebook or whatever will comment on it because it applied to their life today. So, and so I think that's one of the ways we mostly do it is hopefully we offer things that apply to their lives right now, like Mitch said.
Yeah, we also just try to point out to people in easy ways. This is an easy access point for a friend of yours. So like this last month, we've been doing the gospel according to Disney, and the whole family has been included in worship. That's a huge opportunity for another family to invite another family. Hey, my church is doing this thing right now, and the whole family's worshiping together, and we're watching Disney movies on Sunday morning. Right? That's an absolutely easy way to actually hook another family in. And we say that. I said, hey, this is a great month for you to come and invite a friend to come with you. So, I mean, we do explicitly tell people this is a good opportunity right here. We don't tell them you must go do this. It's just
go invite three friends.
Exactly. No.
We also have we have a lot of good participation in some of our studies. Like just an example is our Wednesday morning women's Bible study. I can think of at least 3 people that have ended up becoming members. We call them partners at DSPC. Through the Bible study, because someone invited a neighbor. Sure. Hey, I'm doing a great study at my church. Do you want to come? And that has been a common theme in our women's Bible study. And I also think Mitch would say it was a common theme in Celebrate Recovery, which he leads on a Tuesday night.
I think it all just comes back to what you're saying. It's application to someone's life. Do the things that we're doing in this place, can someone actually apply those principles and teachings to their lives? Whether it's a recovery group or a women's Bible study, the things that people walk out and apply to their life, they catch on with other people.
Well, one thing is I've given up thinking I have to know everybody, and because it's difficult to know everyone's names and to know distinguished visitors anymore. So kind of giving up some of having to do that and encouraging our members to do that. In particular, we're working really diligently right now for our deacons and elders to be the ones that actually pick that up for us, that challenge. The challenges in terms of differences, I think we have just said we are who we are. We're going to follow Jesus as closely as we can. We're willing to make, changes, make small changes. But what we haven't done is really, we've tried it here and there to say, well, we want this kind of service. Like we want a traditional service. Well, we tried one Easter service years ago that was straight up traditional, and it just bombed because it's not us. And the same effect would be as if somebody came in and said, hey, we need louder mute, we need this, we need that. We're just going to say, you know what, we are who we are. We want to love on you, but this is the way our service goes. Mitch and I don't wear robes. We don't preach behind a pulpit. We have some differences that people have said, this is weird when I've come in, but if the Spirit is moving, the Spirit's going to move and do something with us. So I guess I'd say that those challenges of addressing people wanting things to be different, we've just tried to stay focused on our mission and let those sort of figure out along the way. Biggest challenge is staff, I'd say. Staying up with the growth, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly you always have more need than you have resource, whether you're talking about money for ministries or money for staff or any of those type of things. I mean, in a big growth stage, you always feel like you're one or two steps behind the curve, right? Trying to make sure that you're taking care of staff well and that the facility doesn't look like it's been run through by a herd of bulls, which was VBX last week.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's always stuff like that. But yeah, I think the trick for us as a body of believers is our identity has not come from any particular agenda other than we believe in Jesus Christ. We believe He can transform your life. Come do it with us, right? And
That's our only agenda.
yeah, and that has been I'd say birthed really organically in our congregation. And so our identity is an identity that's grown up from the people that are in here rather than any agenda that we've brought in to try to make the people, this is who we are, So we have listened, I think, really well to how our people want to live out their faith on Sunday mornings and throughout the week, and we're sensitive to that. I just feel like our identity, if you will, and the growth that's come from that it's nothing that Nancy or I implanted into people. It's just listening. It's walking with people and being real with them on Sunday morning. And then, because there have been changes throughout the years. I mean, the church that we are now is different than we were 5 years ago. But there was never
bouncing from one like, I want this, I want that.
There was never some huge strategic shift that we made. It was always slowly discerning, okay, where are we now, and what is important to people.
Following Jesus. We also have worked really diligently from the beginning to hold the tension of differences. And our unity is in Christ. It's not uniformity, it's unity. And so when an agenda, any agenda, has popped up on any direction, we want to recognize it. And we also recognize that we have in the same congregation people that hold perhaps a very different agenda to that. But if we keep focusing on Jesus, we can there's room to hold both of them and actually learn from one another. And that, I think, is probably, as we grow, that is continues to be a challenge. And it's a good challenge. And I think we do work to get to encourage people to listen well to one another and to continue to love one another and just to keep focusing on Jesus. So
I'd say we're politically and theologically diverse, but we still talk to each other. We still worship together, even on staff, and so I'd say that is definitely part of who we are. And it's a big reason why people walk into the doors and they don't feel like they get pigeonholed into, you have to be this way to be here.
Yeah.
That's
right.
Because they see a diversity of beliefs. Mm-hmm. They see diversity in staff, right? We have men, we have women, right? We have different ages. So I think we've done a good job of really holding all the tension between all those various things that people can get really divisive about.
Yeah, especially these days.
That's right. That's right. Preparing them to do, and
we're actually in the midst of figuring some of those.
Those roles have changed over the years. Not drastically.
Not drastically.
We're always nuancing it to try to meet the needs of the church.
And we are, I think, in our next, you're talking about our challenges and where we're going in growth. I think our one of our next challenges, and we're going to challenge our officers, is to really ramp up their commitment personally. If we expect people, and we're doing really a I don't want to say a push is the right thing, but it is a push towards getting people into, as we grow, into smaller groups. You know, that theory, the bigger you get, the smaller you get. And what we've said to one another is we need to have an expectation that every single officer in this church is in some sort of a group, because why would we expect others to do it if our officers aren't? We haven't yet said that, so I don't know if you're putting this out public, but we haven't said that to them directly yet in so many words. But we are, I'd say, ramping up our expectations in terms of commitment as we grow, because we can't do it all. We need them.
Just like I feel this way over the last 9-10 years, my leadership capacity has had to grow with the organization. It makes sense as the organization continues to grow. Not just Nancy and I's leadership has to grow, but our officers have to grow as well. I think to keep up with the growth of the organization, to keep it healthy. We need strong spiritual leaders. Mm-hmm. The more people that we have coming through our doors, there needs to be people besides Nancy and I who can step into a situation and act on behalf of Christ, and to speak a good word where there needs to be one, or to have a shoulder for someone to lean on. So that's, I think, what Nancy's talking about, is we're realizing as we are growing, we have to have more people besides Nancy and I that can fulfill those roles. Mm-hmm. Well, we jumped around a couple times. The place we are now is a beautiful facility and meets a lot of our needs, which is wonderful. But we had very humble beginnings. Actually, church initially started by renting the city hall, which only really happens in places like Dripping Springs, right? You're not going to do that in Austin. But out here, they started in City Hall, and then after that, we moved to a rented building, which was actually a shared space with a body shop. So it's just a metal building with a body shop connected to it. So we rented one half of it, and the body shop was in the other. And that was a big jump. I mean, it was a big leap of faith for a growing community. But I would say that's another part of growth is time after time after time, you have to take big leaps of faith. And it was a big leap to go from City Hall to the body shop. It was a huge leap to go from the body shop to the piece of land that we're on now. But we have always just come together, prayed over it, done our very best to be good stewards of what we have, and then when we feel like God has brought us to a place of that where we feel like we need to take the leap, we just go for it and believe in God's faithfulness. So that's where we are today in the kind of the neighborhood that we sit in. Is right in the center of town. Years ago, I mean, probably even before the body shop, the goal of this church was to be the heart of Christ and the heart of Dripping Springs. And so we are right in the middle of Dripping Springs. And so that was the prayer. We want to be the heart of Christ and the heart of Dripping Springs, heart of Christ and the heart of Dripping Springs. And so that was the discerning prayer, right, that had been put out for years and years. And through some baby steps and some really big boy steps, we got there. So really a lot of explosive growth in terms of neighborhoods. Dripping Springs in general is just a really fast-growing suburb of Austin. So, but the majority of what surrounds us is just residential neighborhoods, and with some more commercial stuff as you go into town a little bit more. But yeah, there's a lot of young professionals. I would say that if you want to kind of know the demographics of the area, a lot of young professionals, but also a lot of empty nesters. This is an affluent community, so it can be a little difficult for younger families, starter home type families. That's a difficult demographic to get out here. There are some, but mostly what you're seeing are well-established young professional families, and then a lot of empty nesters who want to be near their grandchildren. So that's kind of the area. So since we've sort of, it's always been a part of our DNA, but since we've moved into this facility, we've been even more conscious of the fact that we do not want to become so internally focused on just what's going on within these four walls. And so For Drip, what you're talking about, is actually an idea taken from another church in Atlanta, and is the idea that so much of what the church is known for is what it's against. And we want the community, our community, to know that God is for them, not against them. And so we've just used that sort of mantra, we are For Drip, to host really cool community events. Things like we did a For Drip senior prom for seniors. So we actually went to the local assisted living facilities, and we hosted a senior prom for seniors, and it was For Drip. Each football season we do For Drip tailgates, where we put up inflatables, cook food, drinks, the whole bit in the parking lot, and everything is free. It's just come, and we do giveaways for students and for teachers during those tailgates. And there is no hook, right? It's just come hang out with us because we want to show you that God is for you. And we are for you because God is for you. So that's sort of the hook of For Drip, which has been really exciting. We also take an offering once a month called the Dollar Difference, which is For Drip. Everybody throws $1 in an envelope, and then we request stories from our community online. Tell us about people that are for your community, and then we go and we ambush them, and we give them a big check for whatever was collected on Sunday morning to show them that we are for that person because they're For Drip. So it's just sort of a creative framework to show our community that God is for them. I would say the other big thing that's come along in the last 18 months or so is there is a pretty serious lacking of recovery ministries in the area. And so that's sort of our other kind of, I would say, keynote outreach ministry right now is actually offering a place for Al-Anon meetings, offering a place for Celebrate Recovery. That has had a huge impact, and actually we're expanding into doing Alateen ministries now, and that's been a really big deal. There's a big need, right? So basically what we do is we try to see where are the needs in our community and how can we partner to be a solution to some of those needs. No. I think the target is honesty. It's being genuine in our faith, and I think that attracts all demographics. Whether you're 18 and you're looking for a church, well, you want to step into a place where you feel like people are real, like they're having real discussions about the things that matter to you. Or if you're retired, you want to be around people that you feel like you can really connect with on a human level and on a spiritual level that's very real. So no, we haven't had a whole lot of targeted demographics that we're going after. Mostly it's just honest, real connection with one another and with God.
Great.
I'd probably say if you really want to grow, you need to be willing to throw the entire playbook out.
What does that mean?
Don't assume anything that you've been doing is necessarily correct. Like, be willing to look at every part, every ministry you do, how you do it, how you connect. Everything is open on the table for discussion on whether it's good or not. I'm not saying what churches, like what established churches may be doing, are wrong. I'm just saying you have to be willing to slaughter any sacred cow, right? If you want to grow, If you don't want to grow, that's fine. You don't have to do anything. But if you want to grow, you have to realize that everything is on the table. And that's hard. It's really hard. But you can't hold back. You can't say, I'm willing to do anything but this. Right? And actually, I think that's a lesson from the biblical narrative too, right? I'm willing to do everything but this, God. No, that doesn't work. So, and that's a real abstract sort of final words to churches, right? Is put it all on the table. But truthfully, there is not a single thing that we are doing today at our church that I wouldn't be willing to say, cut it out. It's not doing it anymore. It's not working. If it's not working, if it's not accomplishing its goals, get rid of it. Something to go along with that, I would say, is things that get measured get done, right? And so if you're measuring something and it's not working the way you think it's supposed to work, or it's not accomplishing the goals it's supposed to accomplish, get rid of it and start something else and start measuring that and seeing if it's doing the right thing. So yeah, it's sort of a, I think we tend to want church to be the way we want it. But to experience growth, I think you have to be extremely flexible, and you can't expect church to necessarily be the exact way that you would want it. You have to be willing to accept what works, and to look at the numbers and look at the data and actually measure things carefully and say, this is working. And people get uncomfortable, right, when you talk about measuring numbers. I think that's kind of silly. Numbers matter. Numbers are one of our best indicators as to how something is progressing. And so I think you should pay attention to the numbers. I think you should also pay attention to whether you're meeting more abstract goals of things like sometimes can be difficult to measure someone's discipleship journey. Although we've come up with ways of doing that too, so it's not impossible. It's just maybe takes a little bit more thought, but no, measure things and pay attention to the numbers. They tell us a lot about what we're doing. I look at the numbers every week for my church. I look at what attendance was like on Sunday, then we take what attendance was and we contrast that against our what we call ministry wins and ministry losses. Where did we do well? Where did we not do well? Do we think any of that affected the way people experienced the service? And did we have a dip the next week because of some of the, we actually do analyze what we're doing to a certain degree. Now, there are ups and downs in numbers, and we pay bigger attention to trends, right, rather than week to week. But absolutely pay attention to what's going on in the numbers, and the same thing is true. And again, people are uncomfortable with that. Same thing is true of giving, right? We are an organization. We have facilities, and we pay attention to how we look at our giving as another indicator of organizational health and spiritual health. And so the numbers matter there too. And so we pay close attention to those things. And that might make some people feel uncomfortable, but it actually makes me feel a whole lot more secure that I know what's going on in my organization, in my church, in the lives of people that I'm ministering to, right? So, put it all on the table and Don't be afraid to go any direction that God might be leading the church, even if it makes you uncomfortable, and pay attention to what you're doing, really close attention to the numbers and the data that you do have, because it can be a huge tool to take you the next place you need to go.
Kindle all people with your fire.